It's Romania Black. No big deal. We're just on episode 14 of Dungeon Meshi! And I'm super excited because episodes 11, 12, and 13. Mwah! Mwah! Amazing! Revolutionary! The best! Peak! Awesome! Never before seen! I thought episode 11 was great. And then 12 happened, and I was like, oh my god, I love 12. And then 13 happened, and I was like, I think 12 is my favorite of the three of the Rescue Fallon trilogy. But episode 13 definitely had the jaw-dropping, oh my god, we're doing this moment of our dark elf taking off with Fallon, who is now the resurrected red dragon. Like you do. And I was actually surprised last episode that Laios agreed. And as far as we know, Marcel has agreed, or maybe she was drug against her will back to the surface. But Chilchuck came through. Chilchuck had a good moment last episode, bringing it all together and making some good points about how they need to regroup at the surface, get some people together, get some resources together, and then go back down and have a rescue party to go get Fallon 2.0. It's like 2.0 Fallon, and we're good there. So I've got some comments I want to talk about before we dive into this episode, but I'm super, super excited. Tamia, back in episode 11. These comments are all from episode 11, so here we go. Tamia says, when I heard the comment, it reminds me that I like raw horse meat. It's not that rare in Japan. You can find it in specialty restaurants, and if you're in big cities or a specific region in the South, they're well known for horse meat sashimi. I don't know much about horse meat because in the US, it's pretty taboo to eat horse, at least for most Western audiences. So unless it's something cultural, there's not a lot of horse slaughtering in the US. It's frowned upon. So I've not had the opportunity to have horse meat, but I don't know. I feel like it would be horses are so muscular. I feel like it would be like a really muscular cow, but I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know. I feel like because it's always been culturally told to me that you're not supposed to eat horses, it's like ingrained in my brain that it wouldn't taste good, but I could be wrong. You could give it to me and me not know it's horse meat, and I might really like it. So who knows? Swallow's Breath had a lot of comments for episode 11. They said the sequence of the guys running from the dragon and Marcel triggering the spell was animated by Kai Ikarashi, who also animated the funny running away from the Undine sequence in episode 8. I could definitely see the animation similarities. Could see that. The sequence of Chilchuck and Sinchi grabbing the sword and throwing it to Laios was animated by Ichigo Kano, who animated Marcel versus the Undine in episode 8. Oh, cool. So we got that tag team duo coming back from episode 8 to episode 11. Those sequences were really good, so I appreciate that quite a bit. And then the episode was storyboarded by Nobutoshi Oguro, who has been in the industry for a long-ass time, since 1987, they think. He started off as an animator, but eventually also made a name for himself as a storyboarder of horror and comedy. Anyway, I'm mentioning him because he's A, great, but also B, he's got some loose ties to some other Romania shows. He's animated a memorable sequence from End of Evangelion, which I won't say what that memorable sequence is, but oh my god, yep, okay, well, that's good to know. And he did key animation for Utena episode 1 and some storyboard work for Promare. That End of Evangelion is possibly one of the craziest movies I've ever seen, and I appreciate that about it and the style of it, so okay. But that's really cool. And then Elfreya brought up a really cool point in episode 11. Young Fallon declaring that the ring was tying the soul to the body sounds tangentially similar to the dungeon magic our group is facing in making death forbidden inside. Obviously, I believe theory-wise that Fallon is a prodigy with magic and can sense things very easily. Marcel kind of seems drawn to her for that reason. I am curious. I don't think the Dark Elf knows that about Fallon. They just know that she was resurrected from the blood of the Red Dragon, so she thinks that ergo Fallon is the Red Dragon. And maybe Fallon, it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. Like, is this Fallon that was resurrected from the dragon's blood? Or is this the Red Dragon that was resurrected using Fallon's body? Which is it? Is it both? Can it be both? Is that okay? What does that mean? What are the implications? I mean, I do believe that part of Fallon is in there from the conversations between her and Marcel and her and Laios, but it definitely feels like there's this symbiotic relationship between the Red Dragon and Fallon. So then it becomes, what do we do with that? So, which is probably going to be talked about throughout the rest of the series in bits and pieces, I am sure. But I'm curious at this point. I don't think the Dark Elf realizes Fallon's prodigy level abilities with magic, or they may think that they're tied to the Red Dragon. So I feel like later on, something that might be beneficial to Fallon is that knowledge that Fallon has about magic and her own abilities that could be used against the elf in the long run. We'll see. We'll just have to see, won't we? But I'm super excited about what this episode is going to give us. So before we start, I want to give a very quick shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon to thank you all so much for supporting the channel and also supporting me on Patreon. I am here for anybody on Patreon that's supporting me, regardless of what tier, as well as those on YouTube that are subscribed and watching the videos and commenting each week. You all are amazing and I really appreciate it. So special shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Bryant Reed, to Damage3245, to Dana, to Danny Donmai, to Devorin, to Danger Zone, to Destiny Marie, to Eric, to Ichu, to Fisho, to Ghostly Turnip, to Elfreya, Liam Polzel, as well as Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphy, Nicholas, Nago, Sunspots, Shimoyama, Trails, Translucent Men, and Starman AA. Thank you so much for all of your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. Yeah, I'm very curious because I feel like we're going to go back to the surface and get regrouped. They talked about talking to the Lord of the Island. I don't know if the Lord of the Island is related to Laios, if it is in fact their dad, or if it's someone else. We don't know. So we're just going to find out. But in any case, we are going to start episode 14 of Dungeon Meshi, if I can get these headphones off. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. The walking mushroom. Are we getting? Oh, we're getting a new OP. Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh, yeah. Okay. Ah! Oh. Oh my god. Y'all be fine. My dogs are probably gonna be ridiculous. With octopus. Oh, and a big dog. Laios should be happy. Oh, with the cabbage. Oh. Oh. I'm so curious. And now, oh no! They're eating themselves! Oh no! Oh, I think I saw the elf there for a second. Are these like all the souls that are bound to the dungeon, maybe? Possibly? Aww! Friends forever! Oh, they had this moment without Marcel. Look at this moment between them. A little earlier. Ho ho. Oh, the goat blood. Yeah. Wow. Well. Was it? Will Namari know who that is? Will she know who that crew is? Oh no! Thinking they're thieves. Oh. Kabru, yes. Oh. Uh-huh. Yikes. Well, this'll work. I'm surprised Amari doesn't recognize. Oh, she's too busy flirting! Too busy flirting to know! Damn it! Too busy having a damn relationship to point out it was Laios and crew. Well, girl. Were you guys dating at some point? Oh, no. That's like the chill chuck equivalent. Oh, and she's like the Marcel equivalent, but I like the red cape. Are they gonna meet up in town? Hmm. I mean, yeah, you could all be dead and trapped in the dungeon. Oh. Reen. Okay. McBell. Oh, Kuro. Yeah. Oh, man. McBell is kind of like the chill chuck equivalent. Laios would definitely want a Kuro equivalent on their team. You guys gonna die again? Shit. Are y'all gonna die again? Oh, shit. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Why are we doing this now? Oh, shit. Oh. Oh! What are we doing? What? Oh. Isreen. Oh, the mage. Okay. Okay, the Marcel equivalent. Oh. 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 Oh, Kabru. Uh-huh. Kabru. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh! Oh, Kabru! I don't know. I'm still getting the Laios connection could work. Oh, weren't these the guys that swindled him before? Yeah. Uh-huh. Isn't this funny? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Funny that. Hmm. Hmm. Right. Yep. What? Hmm. Yeah. Uh. Oh. That's weird. Yeah. To carry these. Oh, that's awful. That's awful. You're gonna make them kill them just to get money? Yeah. Laos is like Kabru's like bullshit. Is it gonna be them? He's gonna try to stab him. Oh! Oh! Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh my god, Kabru's eyes! The crazy eyes! Oh my god! Oh. Are you not any of those? But you are, that you're just making the comparison. Woof! Brutal. Oh. Oh. Ho, ho. Oh. Oh. Well. I have thoughts. I have many thoughts. I have lots of thoughts. I have lots of thoughts. Uh, oh. I have so many thoughts about Kabru and Laios. I can't wait. Hmm. As a profitable pit. Ah, interesting. Right. So then what? So, yep. Oh, and are you from one of those settlements? Okay. Ooh, I like this. This difference. Okay. Okay. Ah. Oh. Aw. Interesting. Oh. Oh. Adventurers rations. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Interesting. Could be. Hmm. Ah! Ah! I mean, uh-huh. Oh, I like how Kabru views them versus the others. Right. Uh, oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah. Hmm. Because that's her hair. That's Marcel's hair. Honor student. Oh, wow. Interesting. Did she go to the same magic school? Hmm. What is it, Kabru? Why? Why would you be thrilled? Toten? What? How do you know about him? How do you know about Laios already? Oh, you noticed. So you noticed. Oh. Oh, how do you know what? What about Laios? How do you know the Toten siblings? Uh-huh. If one of the siblings got lost, yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay. What, have you been eavesdropping on them? When did you spy on them? How do you note them? Strong dwarf scent. Probably. Uh-huh. An Easterner. Uh-huh. How do you know all these people? What? How do you know all them? Oh. Okay, the arms dealer. Yeah, because she knows all about weapons. Well, this party has a lot of famous people in it, apparently. Oh. Is that Laios' dad? Who is the Lord of the Island? Oh. Oh, do you? A middle-aged fellow? Oh my god. What? Uh. Oh. Oh. Oh my god. Yeah. She's like, don't assume. Yes, that would, yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. How does Kabru know all this? What reconnaissance have you done? Right. Hmm. Yeah. How do you know all this? Oh. Are you a sociologist, sir? Oh. What? Oh. Oh. Yeah, a touching story. Oh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh. 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 I'm so intrigued. Interesting. So much interesting here. Oh, damn. Oh my God. Oh my God, no! Oh my God, no! Shit! Shit! Oh shit. Oh my God. And you would know the part two. Wait, where is that? What is this? Oh! Oh! Hi! Hello, 5 o'clock shadow. Oh. Uh-huh. Ah! Oh, the girl's all blushing. You're sure, oh, yeah. Oh no! Oh no, my dude. Oh no, oh, because they're a demon. Oh, like an ogre. Oh my God. Ah! 2 full days have passed and they're still hugging each other. Oh no. Oh no. What? What do you mean they're lost on the brink of of death. What? Oh, what is this? Oh, and there's, yep, the orcs. Oh my god, yes. Oh, and Kabru and them going back through with the living armor. Uh-huh. And the girlfriends. Oh no, she's trying to help you! Oh wow, and the elves. Interesting. Oh wow, okay. Oh, Fallon. What is that? What is that? Okay. Is that the end? Is Fallon gonna be a chicken? Don't answer that question. I could just see the comment section being like, well, because don't answer that question. I just, in the end credits, I'm not going to pay too much attention to the OP, if I'm being honest with y'all. I watched the OP. Glad we have a new OP. Surprised we have a new OP, but I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm not going to pay too much attention to the OP, and I probably am not going to be to the ED after this because I want to be surprised. And these end credits and the OP felt a little bit like they were trying to offer some spoilery imagery. And y'all, I got 2 master's degrees. I can put 2 and 2 together, usually. Sometimes things go over my head. But when I saw the dark elf at the end with like these chicken legs and a big chicken standing there, I'm like, well, they did say to Fallon, they're like, this form doesn't suit you and I'm going to turn you back into this other form. What if instead of a giant red dragon, they turned Fallon into a chicken? I mean, you are what you eat, right? We'll see where this goes with that. But I probably am not going to pay too much attention to the OP and ED just to be on the safe side until we get some more confirmation about some things, just to be on the safe side. But oh my god, I had to bring Whiteboard Coon out because Kabru, the Wolfwood to my Vash. Yes! I've been wanting to talk about this. I love it. I love it. What I love about it is I love that Kabru's party is not immediately going to find Laios's party, I don't believe. Kabru is just Nancy Drewing it over here, just being like, I know all the tea, all the gossip. I may be a tea. Kabru's over here being the TMZ of the island, just checking out everybody's business and putting stuff together. He reminds me of a lot of characters. Kabru was giving me vibes from a lot of characters that I've seen in other shows that I'm going to talk to you all about. But I really, really like Kabru. And I like Kabru as this very, very interesting counter to Laios. And we're going to talk about that in this. And so I like their party and their counters and how this is all shaping up. We have Shuro again. Shuro's back there. Poor Shuro. I'm just going to say this right now, y'all. I feel the most bad for Shuro right now because the poor man is hung up on Fallon. My dude, Fallon does not like you. And I don't know how to tell you this, but every indication has shown that Fallon is swinging towards the lady side hardcore. And sir, there's a woman offering you onigiri that looks like she's quite smitten with you, and she's gorgeous and seems like a very nice lady. You probably should start paying attention to her because I don't think you're going to get Fallon's attention. And I hate for this poor man to be straight baited this entire series and then it not work out for him. I feel for Shuro, and I really don't want it to work out for Shuro because I like Fallon and Marcel so much that I'm like, just the lady with the onigiri, go with her. She clearly likes you, dude. But starting this episode off, I love that while everything that was going on in this episode was happening, poor Marcel is just like passed out with orc vomit in her mouth. And meanwhile, Laios and Sinchi and Chilchuk are sharing the most bromantic hug in existence that lasted for 2 days. We were talking about this in the comments. I was talking about this with Anime Annie and some others, but on Patreon, the humor in this series is so dark that it provides this perfect levity, because this series has some very dark undertones, and it's like everything's so happy, and really it gets like kind of dark and grotesque, and the humor kind of provides the exact amount of levity that it needs without getting too crazy. So I appreciate it. It's definitely my style of humor, and I like it more and more as we go. But interesting, we get a few callbacks. So we get a couple callbacks when the gnome crew, Taru, whatever his name is, when he revives Kabru and the others, he demands payment, but he used a goat's blood. So that is the callback to Marcel using the forbidden magic. They were like, we can't wait on a goat or a cow's blood. We can't wait on that. So we're going to use this forbidden magic that's going to let us use this dragon blood and do all of this. And everything. I think that the resurrection of Kabru and the others was pretty easy because their entire bodies were intact and weren't, eaten and completely digested. So that makes a big difference. It probably wasn't that hard for the old gnome to resurrect them. So thus, that's probably why I didn't charge that much. But yeah, I thought that was a nice callback. Also, you could not tell me that Kiki and Namari are not a thing. Like, they were over there. It frustrated me so much because at the beginning they said, oh, it has a tall man, a half foot, a dwarf, an elf. And I was like, Namari's standing right there. And she could have been like, oh yeah, that's Laios and crew. But she was too busy flirting with Kiki, having a kai with Kiki over there to pay attention. So the thing that gets me though, is that it didn't matter. Kabru already knew. Kabru already knows about Laios Toden and his sister and the whole scope. So he really didn't have to find out. He just wanted to confirm it. I'm like, I am all about the layers peeling back, and Kabru is a character that I am like, oh yes, sir. Oh yes, sir. Let's get into this. So let's talk about the team. We have our clear differences. We have Laios versus Kabru, which we're going to talk about. If you thought that kiss with that mage was going to sway my ship from Kabru and Laios, you are sorely mistaken. And we'll talk about it. I'm like, if people ship Reen and Kabru, I think that's fine. I think they're cute. It's kind of like, well, let's talk about this. We have Marcel, who is the mage. Marcel is the mage of their group. And then we have Rin, it's Rintra, or just mainly Reen, and they are both the mages, which seems fitting. I kind of like there's a little bit of subtle shade thrown by Reen, where she's like, oh, she probably went to a magic school. This is all textbook. It was very much like the, oh, you went to school, honey. I learned from the streets kind of mentality is the vibes that Reen was giving off, which I was living for. The one thing is, that Kuro, the kobold, Laios would kill for a kobold. And in the OP, it seemed like there was a dog following them. So maybe Laios gets a kobold to join the party of his own. So, but we have poor Kuro over here. Kuro, the kobold, is over here. There's not really a equivalent to that unless you consider Shuro. Kuro and Shuro. Well, no, see, Shuro's an Easterner, so we're going to put him over here. He was in the party, but he's an Easterner, as they would, which is kind of like reflective of people of Eastern Asian descent. Like, it's like the characters seem that way. I do love when Reen kind of calls them out for being a little bit racist, where they're like, oh, Shuro, like, do you know? And she goes, oh, like we all know each other and speak the same language. I was like, ha! Like, Reen called them out so quickly. And I kind of love that because I feel like if you are culturally ignorant, it is so easy to form a racial stereotype of being like, oh, all Asian people speak what? It's like, no. there are multiple dialects in China alone. There's like multiple different accents and dialects in Japan. It's like no, you can't just assume. And so I kind of love Reen calling it out for what it is. It was done really well. I loved that. I was like, hell yes. And I'm really starting to like Kabru's party just as much as Laios's party in a way, and we barely even know them. Also, I like the idea of, is it, what's their name? Is it Milboot? We're going to get their name here in a second. Mick Boot. Mick Toot. What's their names? But yeah, so they basically were attacked by fishmen, of course. And then he takes the money and goes, and they're like, are they adventurers? Well, you know, it's not necessarily that they're adventurers, but Kiki and Namari over here, I mean, whatever they got going on. I ship them so hard. I love them. I want to ship them a lot. But yeah, so Kabru's like, are you making... Reen's interesting. She's like, are you making eyes at a dwarf? You have no standards. I'm like, girl, don't be judging people just because she's a dwarf. I mean, come on now. But I can't decide if Reen likes Kabru or if she just likes teasing him. I can't decide if she likes Kabru romantically or if she's kind of like a Marcel and Laios situation where they're more like siblings. Personally, I want to lean towards the sibling things, but that's because I'm very biased. So I really like Reen and Kabru's relationship, though. And he's like, oh, no, that's not it. She's like, you have no standards. He's like, well, I've never picked my friends based on how tall they are. And she's like, huh, well, is that so? She gives off the vibes of somebody that would have a crush on Kabru, but Kabru's interesting. So, like, our provisions are gone. They've stolen from us again. And they're like, how dare they? I kind of love the Chilchuck equivalent on their team is really, really funny. So, okay, Daya is a dwarf. Daya is the blonde. So we have Daya, and they seem like they're kind of tied to, I don't know, honestly. You could say that they're kind of tied to Senshi. Would I ship Daya and Senshi? Maybe. I don't really want to ship characters just because they're the same species, though. So, I don't know. I like Daya. Daya's kind of cool. She's really calm. She's kind of like just chill. She's like, everything's fine. She kind of has, I don't know. Daya kind of has like a Fallon equivalency to her. So I actually would put that Fallon is more like her. Daya's super calm and chill, even though she's not a mage. She kind of has like a Fallon kind of calm sense to her. So yeah, we'll see. And so like, oh, well, we need to take him to task. I mean, Reen is definitely like Marcel, like just absolutely emotional, headstrong. Let's just go do this. Oddly enough, I feel like Marcel and Reen would either really get along or they would hate each other. There's no in between. Absolute in between. So like, okay, what do we do, Kabru? And then he's like, well, we've got no option but to go back to town and restock. They're like, well, we can't catch the thieves. We don't have any provisions. It's not going to work out for us. I like that Kabru's like, let's admit our own lack of skills and just go back and regroup. Just like those people said, we should be thankful we're still breathing. We've died twice now. Let's go back to the surface and regroup. And then the one gnome, they are a gnome, right? I think they're a gnome with the hat, says there. If you promise you won't forget about finding the thieves, I'll follow your lead. I like that Rena's just sitting there twirling her hair like, I'm not happy about this, but I'll agree to go along with it because it's you. And he's like, sure, you have my word. I don't know. Mick Bell. There we go. Mick Bell. So Chilchuck's equivalent is Mick Bell. I don't know if Kuro, the kobold, is kind of like Senshi of the group, but we also have the gnome, who I'm going to get their name here in a little bit. And maybe they're tied to Senshi. We don't know. Senshi can't be tied and compared to nobody. Senshi's his own person. So I do think that like Kobold, Senshi, the gnome, Daya, they're not all equivalents to each other, but Mick Bell and Chilchuck are very similar, and Marcel and Reen are very similar. And then Laios and Kabru. We're just going to talk about them in here in a minute. I like that Kuro is working with Mick Bell, and Mick Bell's kind of hired them as like a bodyguard. That is like a big difference between Chilchuck and them, because Chilchuck wouldn't hire a bodyguard. No. But Mick Bell seems to be wanting one. And Mick Bell really thinks, not the highest of Chilchuck, which is funny. But if we're going to, but they are similar to Chilchuck in that they are thinking about the money and expenditures as it's going on, right? I loved this sequence where they tried to use the magic for the fishmen, and Kabru, knowing how people act and how they smell and how they battle, let them know who it was. I was like, oh, really? So Kabru is very in tune with his party and how people... He's very also in tune with just people watching. He likes studying people, which he's like a damn sociologist. He likes studying society. He likes studying people and their psychology and how they move. He's an eavesdropper. He reminds me a little bit of Maki from Bloom Into You, which is a totally different genre. It's like a Yuri manga series, but Maki is this male character in the series, and he's kind of asexual, and he doesn't ever want to fall in love, but he loves people watching and seeing how people react to one another. It's kind of cool. I love his character a lot. Kabru reminds me of Maki in the sense that he likes just like watching people and seeing what they're going to do and like looking at a stage and seeing how they're going to interact. That kind of like kind of gets him off a little bit. Doesn't Maki, but for Kabru it does. But it's funny how he likes observing people, and then you have Laios and he likes observing monsters, right? But they both come at this idea of observation from a very clinical and scientific perspective. Like Laios loves studying monsters and seeing how they're going to react, and he would be a Pokemon breeder for sure. And then Laios likes studying people and seeing how they react and kind of piecing them all together. So they both got a little bit of similarities. They're just on different channels, right? They're tuning into a sports program. It's just a different sport. But he's able to determine it's an illusion magic. And I like that both Kabru and Laios kind of have this curiosity. Holm is the gnome. Okay, so Holm is the one that stands there frozen. I don't really think that they're like Senshi, but definitely Chilchuck and Big Bell, definitely Marcel and Reen are very, very similar, right? So I think that that's kind of cool. But yeah, I thought this whole scene was so interesting. I loved, and then the idea with the shell. And then Kabru's like, the only way to peacefully interrupt a mage's incantation without doing any harm is to give them a kiss. Now, what's funny about this scene is that the whole time, Reen was imagining a fish person kissing her. And Kabru is like, I'm going to kiss her and interrupt her. The thing about it is, if you wanted to, look, as you all know, I love shipping. But I'm not going to judge any ship. And I'm not going to say any ship. All ships are valid as long as they can hold water. I just don't want to jump aboard all ships. But if you told me that this kiss scene gave you like Reen, Kabru shipping, absolutely. You could totally do that. For me, it's the fact that Kabru only kissed her because it was like a clinical way to make her stop killing them. And then later he's like, oh, sorry about that. Didn't mean to kiss you. Wouldn't do it on any normal circumstance. She's like, yeah. She's like, I know. But it's like one of those things, like him kissing her to stop the magic from happening seems like something that maybe Laios would do if it was like something clinical. So, I don't know if some magic happens and Kabru and Laios have to do something to like stop each other from dying. I don't know. Just, but I thought that was a really good moment. And it kind of just outlines that Kabru is not afraid. And Kabru's whole thing is he is such a flirt. He is so flirt. He is so smooth. He knows what he's doing. Even if he's not romantically interested in you, he will do whatever he has to make you think whatever he wants to. I'm like, you are cunning. So I'm sorry. This was brought up by Elfreya in the comments for episode 11, but they were comparing Laios to Vash the Stampede from Trigun. And I was like, yes, I think that's why I love Laios so much, is because I have an immense love of Vash the Stampede. And I was like, I totally see it. So if you don't know Vash the Stampede from Trigun and you don't know Trigun, go watch it. Like once this is over, go watch it. It's really good. But Laios has kind of this it's very stoic. It's very innocent. But I would argue, based on what Kabru says, it is almost innocent to a fault. And we're going to talk about that later on. Whereas Kabru is very sly and very deliberate and very learned of the hardship of the world. He ain't innocent. No. So I feel like Kabru is Wolfwood. If you have watched Trigun, Kabru is Wolfwood, Laios is Vash, Vashwood is a thing, this is a thing, and I am living for it. Because I was like, oh my god, he is like Wolfwood. I was like, this is amazing, and I love this so much. But the other thing that makes him kind of like Wolfwood as well is that Kabru is not afraid to kill a bitch. No, sir. Kabru gets them crazy eyes, and the moment Kabru gets them crazy eyes, it's like, it is over, my friend. You are probably dead. And they are these beautiful blue eyes. Oh, I'm like, I am a sucker for blue eyes. I will take it. Yes, sirree, Bob. Also, if you're going to make Berserk references, I've said it before, but Kabru reminds me a lot of Casca in terms of their character design, except that they're male. And Laios does not look anything like Guts, but there is a wee twinge of gutsiness there. A wee twinge. So I'm here for it, y'all. I'm here for it. The thing about it is, Kabru is able to like kill these guys and then have a smile on his face and just be like, oh, hey, friends. And I'm like, whereas I don't think, the thing about it is, Kabru has no qualms killing anybody because he's like, oh, well, down here you'll just be resurrected, so it's perfectly fine. I don't think that Laios would kill anybody, is the thing. Unless it was a monster, I don't think Laios would kill anybody because it's just not his, that's not his vibe. Whereas Kabru has no problem with it because he's like, you're going to get revived anyway, and this will keep you from stealing from people in the meantime. Also, there's this aspect of Kabru that's kind of like dealing out justice in how they feel it is, because the two guys that have clearly stolen from them and clearly orchestrated this whole thing, they tell Kabru, they're like, oh, well, you knocked these two guys unconscious, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to kill them and then take them up to the resurrection office and get some money, and we'll split it and just call it even, which is horrible, terribly, like, you know, horribly immoral. And so Kabru's like, oh, you're these type of people. How about instead I kill you, and then they, when they wake up, can take your bodies to the resurrection office and make a buck. I was, Kabru jumped up. I was just like, yes, please. And I like how his teammates thought for a second like he was going to actually do what they wanted to. And then Kabru's like, no, how about we don't do that? I love that he goes to hit him with the trident, and then instead he turns around and just stabs the guy through the neck. Like just, you don't expect a character to do that, and then he does it, and you're like, oh. And then his teammates are like, oh, well, that's our Kabru. That's our Kabru for you. Like, just, when he gets some wild, crazy eyes, it's over. And then the other two guys get taken out by him. I'm so, like, just Wolfwood and Vash, y'all. That's all I can say, and I'm living for it. And then the other guy, I like that he's like, oh, please don't kill me. And he's like, yeah, actually. He's like, no, sorry about this. I love it. I love the shot of him just like standing over him with those eyes, those like blue aquamarine eyes. I do wonder though, he kind of hints at the fact that he's like, people like you have taken advantage of people over the years and it's not cool. And so I also like that whenever Reen is a little bit uncomfortable, she twirls her hair. And whenever Kabru kills the guy, she's twirling her hair, showing that she maybe is a little bit uncomfortable with what Kabru does. But she doesn't say anything, right? So then, meanwhile, they kick those guys off and decide to they kick them in the water, though. So it's like, maybe they won't get rescued. Maybe they'll get eaten. That's the thing. They just kicked them out like they could be eaten by the fishmen. They basically did the same thing to those guys that they did to them. Well, maybe they won't. maybe they did just murder a bunch of people. Who knows? Kabru looks so sweet, though. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to have... What does he say there? I want to go back to that when they're talking about the kiss. Because she's like, Kabru, and he's like, oh, yeah. He's sorry about what I did earlier. It was the only thing I could think of. And she's like, oh, well, she's like, it's not exactly what I would have wanted anyway. She's like, what are you talking about? I don't know, and I don't care to know. Oh, so she's trying to say that she only remembered a fish kissing her. Okay. So then they talk about the dungeon. And they talk about the problems with the dungeon itself. So they're like, with our abilities, we can't really go much further. And he says, the Lord of the Island sees the dungeon as a profitable pit. So let's talk about this. We have the Lord of the Island that only sees the dungeon as a form of profit. And we know that the dungeon was created by the elves, or specifically the dark elves. Specifically the one that just took off with Fallon. So the Lord of the Island, I don't think the Lord of the Island is connected to the Dark Elf. I think he just saw it as profitable and has been just kind of milking it off. He thinks he can get by monster hides and bones alone. So he's not thinking, the Lord of the Island is not thinking long term about the dungeon, just that for right now, it's a profitable business and we can just exploit it for what it is and it's fine. But Kabru seems, he says, the truth is no one will enter the dungeon once it's fully explored, either because there's no fortune to be made or because it doesn't excite the adventurous spirit. So Kabru's whole situation is that eventually the dungeon will either be uninhabitable or it will cease to entice visitors. Which I don't know if I fully agree with that, because as Sinchi and the orcs and some of the other characters have pointed out, there is an ecosystem with the dungeon, and there is an ecosystem that's developed within the dungeon. And it's kind of like, even if the explorers or the adventurers stop visiting, you have a bunch of orcs that have made a home there that were driven there against their will. You have bandits and people in the underground that have escaped persecution through the dungeon. So I don't exactly know if it will be completely empty, but the point that Kabru makes next is that if it doesn't have people, like if fewer and fewer people start coming to the dungeons, the monsters will spill out and start attacking the citizens. So that's probably the more problematic part, is the monsters. Is that right now the monsters are kept in the dungeon. They're feeding off the people that go into the dungeon. There's reason for people to go into the dungeon. So it's still like the ends justify the means. He's like, but eventually if people stop coming, the orcs will be driven out. The bandits will leave, and then the monsters will follow above ground where there's not, the soul binding spell, and then that's going to cause a problem. And so then he says that's how many settlements have fallen into ruin. And we get a close-up of Kabru's face in that moment, which to me signifies that Kabru has had experience with this very thing happening. We don't know where Kabru is from exactly, if he's from the island. There's a lot of Caucasian on this island, so I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't know where Kabru is from, but I'm just saying there's a lot of pale blondes that inhabit this island, so as far as the tall men go. Well, but then there are also the Easterners, so I don't know, but it's an island, so people have traveled in from other places. So I don't know if Kabru is from here, if he's come to the island, if he immigrated here. We don't know. We don't know about that. But he seems to have experience of knowing what happens when things run amok, like what he's afraid the dungeon will lead to. So his whole thing is we have to lift the curse of the dungeon. He wants to lift the curse. He wants to lift the curse, which he believes will eliminate the monsters. I find this interesting as a part, because what Kabru is suggesting is that the monsters themselves are results of the curse. And so if we lift the curse of the dungeon, the monsters will disappear. And in my head, I'm thinking, but how do you know that? How do you know lifting the curse will make the monsters disappear? Or if the dungeon disappears, will the monsters just instantly be above ground where they can run amok? And, because are they under the assumption that the dungeon master, which is the dark elf, has created all of the monsters? I don't know. So that brings us to Laios, where it's like, what is Laios's goal in all of this? Laios doesn't really have a goal. His goal is rescuing his sister. His goal is rescuing Fallon. Now, where his goal and Kabru's might intercept is that both of their goals require them defeating the elf. Defeating the elf dungeon master will solve both of their problems. It will erase the curse of the dungeon, and it will rescue Fallon. So Kabru and Laios could have intersecting purposes that are comparable, that they can shake hands over, but I'm very curious to see how they would interact. There's no room for monsters or dungeons in this world. Now that's interesting, because I feel like Kabru's perspective there is at odds with several members of the party. Laios is all about the monsters. Laios likes the monsters. Laios would probably like to screw some of the monsters. So Laios is here for the monsters. And so Laios, I think, would disagree with Kabru, saying, well, no, these monsters have a place. It's an ecosystem. We could eat a lot of these monsters. You haven't tasted the fine cuisine, sir. So don't be trying to get rid of the Serengeti before you taste some of the giraffe, you know? And so then Marcel wants to study the dungeons, to study the magic involved in them, because you could learn some magic that would be helpful in helping others, which is her MO. So Kabru's kind of mission is in negative effect of that. Then you have Senshi, who is all about the ecosystem of the dungeon and that it should exist as a sanctuary. And Kabru's MO is in opposition of that. So as much as again, it's very Trigon-esque. I'm all for it. But as much as I want to ship Kabru and Laios, I feel like they are currently at odds with one another, or Kabru has not come to appreciate the dungeon and what it offers, right? And of course, Reen agrees with him that that's the case. And she's like, I'm hungry. And he's like, well, being resurrected does make you hungry, doesn't it? As you could imagine. So like, we found some food, we found some provisions. Now, I do like Kabru saying, I want you, it felt very much like when Senshi, when Chilchuk was like, oh, can we throw these out? And Senshi was like, yeah, throw them out. And he's like, oh yeah, that was treasure. And Chilchuk was like, what? I feel like, Mick Bell is the same way, because Mick Bell's like, what do you mean throw out all of their treasure? And Kabru's like, if we don't, we're the same as these bandits. Kabru has some good morals deep down in there. I'm so curious about him. If we took their valuables, we'd be no better than them. But let's have a light meal now that we're done. Okay, so our light meal, I don't think we're cooking this week. We're cooking enough on Whiteboard Coon, because the light meal is bacon, which we've had before, bread, which we've had before, and some mixed nuts and raisins. I mean, I've got a package of mixed nuts and raisins. I might start episode 15 by eating them. But I think we might take a break from cooking, because last week, let the kitchen air out just a little bit more from the dragon smoke. But I do think we'll take the week off from cooking. I think we'll go ahead and do that. What the sad thing is, they think this cheap ass bread and bacon is amazing. And I'm like, oh, sweet beans. Oh, my sweet, sweet beans. Y'all have not had Senshi's cooking. You guys think that this paltry peasant fare is good? No. So then they say, okay, what do they talk about there? If the ones creating the corpses, won't the Lord of the Island catch on that they're doing all of this as like a scheme? And so then Kabru says there's a screening process to claim rewards from the island. Interesting. They must have been pretty clever to slip through that. Oh, is that the token thing that Laios was talking about last episode? Maybe you have to have certain tokens to get rewards or cash things in. Or maybe they're in cahoots with more parties than we realize. I don't know. At first they go from thinking, I like that they think that Laios' party are these rotten, dirty thieves at first. But then Kabru's like, now wait a minute. We can't just rely on conjecture. And he becomes freaking Sherlock. Nancy Drews has become a TMZ network on the island. It's like, let me tell you some stuff I've figured out from mere observation above ground. And like, will you inform the Lord of the Island? Kabru has no faith in the Lord of the Island. Kabru's like, yeah, I doubt he's going to do shit. So he just doesn't think he just does not seem impressed, nor believing that he will do it. I'm like, is the Lord of the Island Laios and Fallon's dad? Is he the Lord? They've all but confirmed that for us. Like, the guy looks like their dad. The Lord of the Island looks like their dad. They just haven't come out and officially said that it's their dad. So I guess we got to wait and see if it is or not, which is fine. But he says newbies like Donnie will end up getting the short end of the stick. So they talk about Donnie and the other guy, which was a blonde-haired elf and a guy in like a tin can that I think he was in the OP for the first part of the season. If only that stupid Lord gains so much weight that he pops. Yeah, and the elves will come swooping in. So, and we'll still need him to hold out as a bulwark. What is a bulwark? I don't know that word, so I'm going to look that up real quick. A bulwark is, what is that? A bulwark is a wall or fortification, acting as a defense against injury, annoyance, etc. Okay, so the idea is the Lord of the Island is keeping the elves away. The question is, how? But why? Why do the elves let him be the impenetrable wall, keeping them from invading? We don't know. But apparently he's doing something to stop them from coming in. And he's like, and so then he goes along with the idea of, let me see about this. And they're like, well, the party that cast the ghost warding spell. I think it is very telling of Kabru's character that he kept the spell on, that he trusted it. That he trusted that it was something helping them. While everybody else in this party are believing that Laios' crew are a bunch of thieves, Kabru seems very open to the idea of not jumping to conclusions until he's gathered up his evidence. And so he's like, well, this is actually helping, so I'm going to tear it off. Which I think is rather interesting, right? We could identify them with some narrowing down. So then I like that he goes to Reen to have her look at it, and she's like, okay, let me check this out. And she's like, oh. And you can tell, again, she's uncomfortable. She's twirling her hair when she's uncomfortable or doesn't like something. She's like, oh, well, she's probably a graduate of a magic school. They all produce similar spells. Like, girls, like, I was raised in the streets. I didn't go to any magic school. There's like a little bit of an inferiority complex there. It's no doubt the work of an elf. And he's like, magic school? Then Kabru gets super excited. Kabru has a thing for the Toadin siblings. And my thing is, what do you have a thing for? I'm like, he doesn't talk about Laios hardly at all, so I can't say that he has a thing for Laios. But he's super intrigued by the idea that this party is made up of those two siblings. He's like, it's just a guess, but I'd be thrilled if I'm right. And his whole thing with being thrilled is that he loves the idea of these fates crossing ways, of paths crossing, of trajectories of fate being tempted against one another. I'm like, Kabru, you are quite a fascinating individual, and I'm super intrigued by him. So then he's like, I think it's the party with the Toadin siblings. And he seems super excited about that. I'm like, oh, I also like in his mind when he shows Laios and Fallon looks like, totally shy little lamb like she normally is. Laios looks like super like kind of like aggressive a little bit, like super like Laios is a baby golden retriever. Like what? But Kabru is just like, oh, I'm so intrigued. I'm kind of like, I love this. And like those two, they don't strike me as the criminal type. And everybody knows who Laios and his sister are. Everybody on this damn island knows everybody. It's like a small town. This is like rural, small town, Midwest America. Everybody knows everybody and their grandfather. What? I did not realize that. And they're like, the sister is a magic school graduate. Kabru's done his research. But the one who cast the ghost warding spell was an elf. And the siblings are tall men. He's like, let me finish. I gotta get my conspiracy board out. So Kabru's been watching from afar. He's been hanging out, being Aragorn at the prancing pony, coming out to check on people. And he's like, in the elf party, the elves seem pretty close to the sister. I'm like, oh, he instantly was like, chalk that up. Figured that one out. As if they were childhood friends. Yeah, sure. Just good friends. Oh, don't tell me you're Team Shuro. No, no, no. Absolutely not. And there were Chilchuck there. They must have attended the same magic school. I love that Marcella is like getting on to Fallon about her bang length. I'm like, sure. I'll tell you right now, many girlfriends, we don't touch each other's foreheads and compare bang lengths. At least not the good friends. So magic school graduates are rare around here, especially if they're an elf, which is interesting to me that elves are, because I guess elves are rare in general there. They're like, I suppose it's possible, but it's not enough to go on. We need more proof. Plus, Kuro only smelled one tall man. So then Kabru's like, well, what if the sibling disappeared or was lost? And and there was a disagreement in the party about whether to rescue them. Like, they had disputes over their goals and the income even before this. And that's when Kabru reveals that he's been, eavesdropping on Laios and Namari's conversations. And we go back to Namari clearly saying, I'm not coming with the party to rescue Fallon. I'm not getting paid. It's not going to work out. And it's so interesting because you see Laios there and he looks like he's sincerely trying to reason with her. Laios is such an amazing character because he comes across very aloof sometimes, but like in scenes like this, he's shown to be very competent and that he was trying to convince Namari, because I would thought it would be Marcel trying to convince everybody and Laios would just be like, yeah, we'll just go to the dungeon. But that's not the case. Laios is pulling his weight too, which adds to that. Now they're desperate, resorting to stealing treasure and eating food. And they're like, well, I guess so, but that doesn't explain Senshi. I liked that Kuro the kobold had like a very gruff Senshi. Kobold is the Senshi equivalent. No, Kobold and Senshi are the equivalents of each other. They were smelling each other. Senshi wasn't smelling anything, but Kuro was like, it was a strong dwarf scent. We're going to have those two working together. I can see it. I can see it now. But yeah, I find it really interesting. So then he's like, yeah, it was small. And you're like, that's odd. Why would they still have a dwarf with them? And he's like, maybe they recruited another one. Who else was in their party? And then we see the two of them. We see the siblings. The tall men are Laios and Fallon. And then Shuro, who's an Easterner. And then Namari was the dwarf we saw earlier. And then Marcel was the elf. And then the half-foot's name was Chilchuck or something. I like that he doesn't quite remember Chilchuck's name, but McBell does. Assuming this is a Toad and siblings party, one of the siblings and Shuro and Namari departed and another dwarf joined them, I think. And so Daya's like, oh, so that was Namari back there. Interesting. So apparently Namari was the daughter of the arms dealer, which we know she's really good with weapons. What we didn't know was the backstory of her dad and the possible tie-in that it has to Laios' possible dad. Because then she talks about how the arms dealer was someone that controlled trade of arms on the island, but one day he was found embezzling and was forced to vanish. The leader of the island looks like Laios' dad. If it's not his dad, it has to be his uncle or somebody. But apparently all the dwarves, he got like a bad name. The dwarves didn't want to associate with Namari, and a lot of dwarves suffered because of him, which is interesting. So like maybe Namari's not an honorable dwarf, which is sad because I do think that Namari is an honorable dwarf. I think that adds a little bit to Namari's character, knowing that her dad was kind of oppressed as much as he was and the repercussions it had for the other dwarves. That puts like a lot of stigma and pressure on Namari and her reputation. So her being honorable is kind of put into question, and it makes her even have to follow the rules even more strictly so that she doesn't come across as being corrupt. Which is fascinating that we're getting all this in this exposition like feast, right? And then McBell knows about Chilchuck. But what we know about Chilchuck says he's a middle-aged fellow. Middle-aged, you say? And he acts like he's the representative for all the half-foots on the island. I love McBell's imitation of Chilchuck as this greedy guy making contracts through the guild. Like he's some kind of shady underbelly guy when this man was too terrified to nearly help his friends last episode. I love her. I love their impression. I don't know if McBell is male or female or non-binary, but they want no part of that, so they're steering clear. I love it. Hilarious. And if he found out I hired a kobold, I'd get an earful for sure. I guess because that's considered beneath a half foot. But also, I'm just saying, they said you wouldn't want to keep me from hiring you, would you? And the kobold's like, Mick gives me food. Mick is a good boss. Uh-huh. I'm just saying, if you're going by the Senshi and Kuro narrative of them being similar, and then you have Mick Bell and Kuro, the shipping is there, y'all. The shipping is there. Also, Kobold and Mick Bell, let's go. Let's go, Kuro. So then Holmes says, what does Holmes say in that case? They're like, I bet he's working him hard for his wages. And you're like, you shouldn't make assumptions like that. I like Dia keeps him in check. So then that's when they make the assumption about Shuro, and Rina's like, we don't know each other. We've never heard of each other. And Kabru's like, I know some info on him. He was a loner even in the Toten's crew. He came to the island with a few Easterners, which are the ones in his party. Okay, so the ones in his party, he went back and found them. He must have fell in love with Fallon, joined the party because he fell in love with her, and then he left, and now he's gone back and found the girls and the other woman with the white that offers him the onigiri. He's back with them. Okay. He joined the party alone. All right. He gave the vibes he wasn't your average person, and he was venturing in the dungeon to test his skills. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And that's when Mick Bell's like, you knowing all these details about people is kind of creepy. And they're like, why do you sound so excited? And then again, the way that Kabru loves studying people is the same way that Laios loves studying monsters. He would have a whole diary full of all of his notes, just like Laios has a diary of all the monsters if he could. Like, they're so similar in that regard, right? And he says, it's really exciting and fun. There are countless people on the island with their own motives. The way he describes it and how they interact and how there's an intersection between it and it sparks a historic event involving lots of people. He's like, I thought this was just a boring theft case, but something interesting is about to happen. He's like, and I hope this crew is the Toten siblings party because for a long time now, I've been itching to see their true colors revealed. That smile that he gives when he says that is not the smile of, I'm really excited in a happy-go-lucky way. It's like, I want to reveal these people for who they are and out them. And I'm like, oh. That is I want to devour them alive kind of face. And I'm like, oh. And then that's when Mick Bell's like, do you have a grudge against them? And he's like, they've not wronged me. In the past, Laios made a fortune in a gold peeling crew. And where they were, I guess, scraping gold from the dungeon. But he was sharing most of his earnings with comrades who couldn't enter the dungeon due to their illness or injury. And Mick Bell's like, well, that seems noble. And he's like, yeah, it's a touching story, but there's more to it. He says his comrades who had long recovered kept taking the money. So they basically tricked Laios into giving them the money. And Kabru watches from afar. He's like, and then in the end, they never returned to adventuring and instead peddle smuggled goods on the island. I'll bestow everything to whoever defeats the Lord of the Dungeon. That's what some king-like figure of the country said. Regardless of whether you could truly obtain everything or not, the dungeon is a legacy left by the ancient elves. It holds significant power. And he's like, that's why I don't think it should fall into the hands of those siblings. I'm just saying, him imagining, every time Kabru imagines Laios, he like looks the most handsome possible. I'm just saying, like the open shirt and everything. So Kabru's basically saying that Laios was very easily tricked and he was easily taken advantage of. And Kabru's like, the idea that the siblings who could be easily manipulated would be taken advantage of if they had all this power to bestow to others. Kabru's like, I've seen what happens when that power falls into the wrong hands. I don't want to see that happening. And I know that these two guys, these two siblings, are too naive to know what to do with that power. He's like, so we can't let them have that. That won't work. And so I find that fascinating. The funny thing is that they're not saints. They're just indifferent to people. Which is so wild to me that they're indifferent to people. That's so wild. I don't know. a part of me is like, yeah, they kind of are. But then another part of me is like, but they're not heartless, but Vash and Wolfwood, y'all. Vash and Wolfwood. I was like, this is that just I was having like Trigun flashbacks watching this whole episode, like, oh my God. But and yeah, oh my God. And Trigun spoilers. Real hot second. Trigun spoilers. Real hot second. The siblings. Laios and Fallon. Knives and Vash. End of I mean, I'm not going to put that for Fallon, but end of Trigun spoilers. Oh my God. But anyway, he says they're indifferent to people, just like the Lord of the island. Yeah, the Lord gives off the vibes of that too, but I'm like, is this guy their dad? We assume that. I kept waiting for them to say it's the dad. And I'm like, but again, I feel like they didn't confirm it's the dad, but it's like 90% there. I also feel kind of bad in that sense because Kabru is assuming that Laios and Fallon are just like the Lord of the Island, who could be their dad. And it's like the apple doesn't always fall straight from the tree, right? And they're like, we know, Kabru, we believe you're the only one to drive out the stupid Lord as well. But if you're struggling with monsters in this area, then you've got a long way ahead of you. So Kabru believes he's going to be the one to defeat the elf and take control of the kingdom and do well by it. Okay. All right. But yeah, I agree. He has a long way to go. So it's like, what are they going to do next? And that's when the sea serpent arrives, which I thought the sea serpent battle was great. I was really worried for them. I was really worried for them, actually, especially when Kabru was going to go there and attack. And then what ends up happening? But we have an ogre, and we have, I believe that's an ogre. And we have the other party there, and then we have Shuro. Shuro with his 5 o'clock shadow, who hasn't shaved, and looks like he hasn't eaten, and looks terribly, horribly distraught since Fallon isn't there. Look, I watched this BBC series called North and South. It's like Victorian romance. But there's a guy at the beginning of the series that's in love with the main woman in the story. And he just he thinks that they're going to be a perfect pair, that all of this is happening, and she just won't return his affections. And so he kind of follows her around for part of the series, and she ends up falling in love with this other guy. But at the very end, he's like, but we're perfect together. And she's like, but I don't like you. That's exactly how I feel about Fallon and Shuro. Shuro seems like a lovely man. He has a deep voice. His voice sounded... Who plays Shuro's voice actor in the Japanese? Shuro... Japanese VA Dungeon Meshi. Who is his voice actor? Shinji Kawada. Who is Shinji Kawada? That name sounds familiar. Shinji Kawada, who you been voicing? Who you been voicing? Oh! Okay. He was Shunichi in Banana Fish. Oh, and Olo in Attack on Titan. Okay. Well, hi, sir. It's been a long time since I've heard that voice. All right. It's just like, Shuro, you're a nice guy. You got a great voice. You seem like a good guy, but Fallon, no, sir. It's not gonna work out for you. No, especially this one woman who has beautiful, oddly enough, if we're gonna go by the chicken thing, she has feather wing. The woman with the wing sleeves, she reminds me of in She-Ra, who is the owl mage in He-Man. Who is it? Who is this? The characters from Masters of the Universe. I'm like, help me out here. Not Teela. Is it Teela? No, it's not She-Ra. It's not. Is it Mara? Surely not. Is it Teela that turns into the that can turn into the owl? I feel like I want to know which one can turn. The Sorceress of Grayskull. Yes, the Sorceress of Grayskull. She has the sleeves that kind of have the owl wings as well. But I feel bad for her because she seems like a really nice woman. And she's seems like she'd help him. And then, of course, I love that. Okay, we have the ogre and we have the group. I love this crew of all these ladies and poor Shuro. They all instantly look at Kabru and have the blushy faces. They're like, a man. Don't blame you, girls. Don't blame you. But Kabru is amazing. But I like that Kabru's instantly like, oh, I could find out more about Laios and the others if I follow Shuro's team around and if I convince them to come help me get with Laios because clearly Shuro likes Fallon. Let's go make this happen. I'm here for this. I love the idea. Also, oh my god, the ogre girl that's holding the snake head, her little cutesy eyes, they are adorable. He's like, you're searching for a woman. And he's like, oh, do you know? And he's like, he looks like he hasn't slept in ages. And Kabru is so manipulative. Them eyes, that sweet little face. And poor Shuro, I'm like, dude, when you find out that your would-be girlfriend's a chicken, I don't think you're going to want to date her no more. Okay, what was really kind of cute was Kuro, who's the kobold. He was like growling at the ogre, or is he growling at the one? Oh, in the ninja suit. Is the one in the ninja suit a cat? And that's why he's growling? I thought he was growling at the ogre girl, but is he growling at the one in the ninja suit because they have cat ears? That's amazing. That would be so funny. Okay. Meanwhile, our poor crew has reached a dead end and they're possibly dying because they might be in trouble. So I'm like, how is our crew going to escape from dying? I'm like, you guys can make it back, surely, but they're hungry and they're running on empty. So then we get to Edie. We find out what I'm sure that we're going to go back to the Dottie and the other ones. Curious. I think my favorite still is the poor woman with the onigiri trying to feed Shuro, and Shuro refuses because he just needs to find the love of his life. And she's like, but no. I'm also curious about the elves. Super curious about the elves. And I don't know why Fallon is with all of these icicles. It gives me Free Written Beyond Journey's End vibes, but we'll just have to wait and see. And then at the very end, we have the magic book with the feather by it. I'm so curious. This episode was amazing, and I loved it, and I want to know where this is going. Kabru has instantly become like on my top list of most fascinating characters because I'm just in love with him already. I'm like, oh, I think my top 3 right now, oh, it's so hard. But Laios, Marcel, and Kabru are probably up there for me. They're probably my top 3 right now. And part of that is shipping, but anyway, I am very understanding that what I have theorized and what I've said, you all watching are biting at the bit going, we can't say because you don't want us to spoil you. So that's fine. That's fine. We can just talk about this episode by itself. And that's it. And that's great. But I'm super excited. We're not going to cook this week, which is fine. We'll see next week. I'm sure that our crew is going to need some food next week. So we're going to stock up, have some toast, have some bacon for breakfast, eat a couple of nuts. You know how that goes. And we'll be back to jump back in next week and see what we get. So I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I will be back very soon with more delicious in dungeon meshing. See you then. Bye.